Welcome to Journey to Queendom, the sacred space where survival ends and sovereignty begins. I'm your host, Marci J. Duncan, and this is where we lay down the cape of overachievement, code switching, and self doubt, and we pick up the crown of softness, wholeness, and authenticity. Welcome to another episode of Journey to Queendom. I'm Marci Duncan, your host, and thank you for joining me today. And again, once again, I'm opening the door wide open. Okay, I'm opening it open. No more hiding, no more survival mode, no more compartmentalizing, none of it. This podcast is how my journey in finally deciding to live my life differently, to make a different choice. Now, I'm going to share with you how survival mode kept me on autopilot in my own life, how it kept me running on empty, right? Running in that little hamster wheel and I couldn't get off. I'm going to share my experience with survival mode as it affected me and how I chose to forgo it and to step into my rightful place, to step into queendom, right? To see myself as a queen and live my life in that vein and all of the luxuries and all of the advantages that come along with that. So, if you've ever felt trapped between who you are and who you think you have to be, this podcast is for you, right? If you've ever felt that you don't really know who your authentic self is, this episode is for you. Because today we're going to talk about uncovering your true self, your authentic self, and how that is a game changer in this process of stepping into your queendom. So tuck in, get a drink. Let's talk. Let's get into it. All right. So if you notice, if you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you're watching, I'm looking down. I have my iPad here to keep me on track because, I have the gift of gab, if you know what I mean. All right. So first things first, we want to check in. We want to check in. How are you doing? How are you doing? I gave you some things to kind of think about last week. I gave you some meditation and I gave you some questions to journal about. And I asked you to make a list, an angry list. That sounds weird, but we're going somewhere, okay? So we're going to talk about that really quickly. I just want to check in. I want to know, how did you do on last week's homework? Let me remind you, for those of you who did not do your homework, let me remind you of what we did. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted you to meditate on, this thought: stop protecting the wounded girl and set her free by authentically embracing the woman you were created to be. What did that bring up for you? What did that statement make you think about? Made you feel? That's what I want to know. Talk to me. Tell me in the comments. Let me know what's happening with you when you heard that statement. I'm going to read it again. Stop protecting the wounded girl and set her free by authentically embracing the woman you were created to be. Let's talk about it. Okay, the next thing I wanted you to kind of journal about these two questions. First question: where in your life are you protecting the little girl inside instead of using your courage to step into the woman you are called to be? What are those areas in your life? Second question: how has survival mode affected you? How has it affected you? Okay, now I'm curious to know y'all's journey. I'm curious to know how you're doing. Okay, we're building something. We are building something and we're also unlearning. We are unlearning because before we can step into our rightful position, our rightful place, we have to put off that pauper's mindset, right? That beggar's mindset, that poverty mindset, that survival mode mindset. We have to put those things off so we can put on our new identity. That is your birthright, right? It's not anything you have to reach for. It's already ready for you. All you have to do is uncover it and step into it. Okay? Let's get into today's episode, how to discover your authentic self and how it's going to be a game changer for you. All right, first things first. I want to start off with our meditation, just in case. I don't know where you guys are coming from, what you've been facing today. I know I've had a day, okay? So I first want to start off by saying to my nervous system, right? To that survival girl on the inside of me who is finding her exit. I want to tell her, you are safe and you are secure. There's no need for alarm. There's no need to fix. And there is no need to hide. You are safe and you are secure. Let's take a couple seconds to take that in. All right, let's get into the work. All right. Now, I also asked you to make a list about all the things that you're angry about. Because if you listen to the last couple of episodes, you realize that anger is really what started this whole process. Now, when I began it, I didn't know it was a journey to queendom. I didn't know I was stepping into my authentic self. I thought I was myself. I thought I was living as authentically as I knew, right? But I didn't know that anger that was residing underneath my life was going to be a catalyst for me bumping right into my authentic self, my true self. And I remember it was during 2020, during George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and COVID. It was around that time where I was starting to really feel this sense of deep rooted anger. And I knew that it was because at that time I knew that it was coming from my Caucasian, my white sisters and brothers being very silent in a time where I needed them to speak up for what was right, to call a spade, to link arms with their Black sisters and brothers and help us fight the fight of justice. And it was radio silence. It was radio silence. I heard nothing from my white friends. And that made me very angry because then I started to look around at the people who surrounded me and I started to question whether these people were for me or whether they were against me. Again, this is that survival mode. Remember, we're always in alarm. We're always trying to perceive the threat or the danger, and we adjust, right? We adjust to that threat and that danger. So this anger was igniting this part of the survival mode in me that made me feel very alarmed. Now, I'm not saying that I didn't have a reason because I certainly did. All right. My anger was well justified because here I am working closely with people at my job, doing life with some people, right? Going to church and doing life and worship and all of this stuff with all of these people. And all of a sudden, nobody's saying anything. Nobody's saying, how are you doing? What's up? This is wrong. Let's stand up for what is right. And that, my friends, made me angry. So, of course, this anger started to show up now in a lot of different places in my life because I did allow myself to feel this anger and to voice this anger and to meditate, if you will, on this anger. So it started to give me permission to kind of pay attention to the other areas in my life that anger was manifesting. And of course, I told you that I started going to therapy. I'm in therapy at this point. And, she's asking me, Marci, why are you so angry? I hear you're saying that this event, started this anger. She said, but I am seeing this reserve of anger as a thread in some of the conversations that we've been having outside of this incident. And I want to kind of investigate with you, where is this anger coming from? Where did it originate? And how do you see anger now? And she asked me, how do you define anger? If you get angry, what's going to happen? And I told her, I'm going to lose control. She said, okay, why do you think you're going to lose control? And I said, well, some of my memories of anger, looking at people manifest their anger, it got ugly. It turned into a brawl or an end of a relationship. It it freaked me out. It scared me as a young person, seeing grown-ups show their anger toward one another. It freaked me out. And from that moment, it started to send a message to me that anger is bad. Not only is anger bad, but the expression of anger can lead to bad things. Now, that is absolutely true. Anger can lead to bad things. The expression of anger can to lead to bad things, as in, the example that I saw in my life. It absolutely did. But that is not an absolute. That is not always the case. And see, that's what trauma does. Trauma sends a signal to your nervous system saying, anytime you feel that feeling that you felt during that trauma, anytime you feel that feeling, it's going to end up the same way. It's dangerous, right? It's going to be the same situation or very similar. So your nervous system is triggered and your body starts to try and protect you from experiencing that correlating event or that correlating emotion. And that's what was happening, right? Here I am with a righteous anger, which means I had a reason to be angry. It was my feelings were valid and it was an anger that needed to happen in me. But I was stifling it a little bit because I thought that it would lead to something bad. It would lead to something it not being able to be fixed, right? And so again, this thread was starting to be uncovered in my life. I remember calling my therapist when I was at work, and let me just back up a little bit. So I was at work, and I was in a production meeting, and I was sitting around the table with a lot of different creators, and we're talking about the show that I'm going to direct. And as the director, I'm in charge of the vision, and then the collaborators and designers that sit around the table, they kind of help me manifest that vision. Well, at the table, I was kind of talking through the vision, and a co-collaborator kind of cut me off and was very rude, and started acting a little bit nasty to me. And immediately I got angry. But I was able in that moment to kind of push the anger down, correct the bad behavior, and say, hey, don't disrespect me. I don't appreciate that. Don't talk to me like that. And eventually we were able to kind of get the meeting back on track. But for the remainder of the meeting, I was fuming on the inside. I mean, smoke could have been coming out of my ears, and I was mad, and that was really all I could think about. So after the meeting was over, I went back to my office and I cried so hard. And it was because I was angry and I couldn't express it. I felt like I couldn't express it at work like that. I refused to. So, I called my girl, my therapist, and I said, can you be free in a few minutes? I need to talk. She said, yes. I went to my car and we FaceTime. And I began to, tell her what I just told you, and and how I was so angry, and I was so disappointed that I allowed this person to get me this angry, and da 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 da. And she says, hold your line. First of all, you have every reason to be angry. Second of all, why are you blaming yourself for being angry? Third of all, you need to deal with the anger that you feel, Marci. So all of these things that she's telling me is like, what do you mean? I cannot deal with this anger. It has to be pushed down because I don't want to reinforce this stereotype of this angry black woman going up in here cussing everybody out. There goes the angry black woman. And I refuse to be a statistic. Remember? So I said, no, I can't go in there and be angry and let them know that I'm angry, because then I'm gonna be perpetuating a stereotype. And she said, that is their fault. That is their business. Whatever stereotype that you so called are going to be perpetuating is their business. Let them. But don't you ignore what you feel. And if it's anger, express it and move on instead of pushing it down. And this was like revolutionary for me, folks. It might be, known for you all emotionally mature people, but for me, it was revolutionary to give myself permission to feel and be angry and to just sit in that space for as long as I needed to, right? You see, I was afraid of making them uncomfortable with my anger. I was afraid of perpetuating a stereotype that they then would think that I'm the angry Black woman, and therefore I am always angry, and I'm mean, and I'm not a collaborator, and I'm not nice, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. You see, I got here because I'm a collaborator, because I work well together, because I'm really good at my job, because I'm smart, because I'm creative, because I am a dynamic leader. That's what I want them to see. I don't want them to see an angry Black woman. But my therapist had to break that thing down for me, y'all. Now, as you can imagine, I was still having a little trouble for it, but it was feeling different because I had permission. So she said to me, Marci, what I want you to do is I want you to write a list. I want you to write a list of everything that angers you. Everything, even if it's the smallest mundane thing. If it really angers you, I'm not talking about annoys you or triggers you or gets on your nerves. I'm talking about the things that make you angry. I want you to write a list, and it can be as long as it needs to be. And then we're going to talk about it. And friends, I asked you to write that list. What's on your list? No, don't tell me what's on your list. That list is for you, okay? And your therapist. But I'm going to share with you some of the things that were on my list, okay? First of all, I was upset because I am a more than qualified Black woman, but I'm the lowest paid at this job. I was upset because I am articulate, I am strong, I am creative, I am smart, and still they don't respect me. I was upset because I can mean the best, I can intend the best, but I don't ever get the benefit of the doubt. I was upset because when I need them to have my back, they abandon me. They lock arms together, and I'm the odd one out. I was upset because I am the most qualified, yet underpaid. Now, these were a few things that were on my list pertaining, to my job. And then there was the list at home. I feel like I'm a personal maid. Like all I do is clean up behind a bunch of grown people. I'm upset because I have to say to my son 18 times, do this, do that. I'm fighting with him to just do what I ask him to do. And then there's my marriage. I'm upset that I feel like he is not listening to me. I feel like he should know what I want. I feel like he should be able to intuit and be on the same page with me. I'm upset. I'm angry. And of course, I'm trying to edit because I don't want to put anybody out there and give you the real G-rated version of my angry list, right? Because I don't want y'all knowing all my business. But there was avenues in almost every part of my life that I had real anger residing underneath. And when I'm talking about underneath, I mean, it's so close to the surface that it takes every muscle in my body to keep it down, to keep it under. And when I tell you, I have been walking around life with all of this anger for very valid reasons, I might add, for very valid reasons. All of this anger boiling underneath the surface because I refused to give myself permission to be angry, to sit in that anger, and to express that anger. Why? Why? Because I was afraid. I was afraid of what expressing that anger could do. First of all, it takes vulnerability to say why you're angry. And of course, from my past, from my skeletons in my closet, I already was battling with vulnerability and trust and intimacy. So this fueled the idea that nobody needs to know. Nobody needs to experience this. Nobody needs to even know that I'm angry, right? They can know that I'm annoyed. They can know that they hurt my feelings, but they can't know that I'm angry. Because, of course, in my association, anger meant lose control. But it's so interesting how your body fights to protect itself, but it ends up, overcompensating and bringing you to the same result. Because as you can imagine, unexpressed anger is a bomb waiting to happen. It is explosive. And you see, that's what I saw, right? Which really isn't a healthy expression of anger, it's a repression of anger. But I did not understand that, y'all. I did not understand that. So I first had to deal with my relationship to anger, my unhealthy relationship to anger. Because the truth is, there is nothing wrong with anger. You know, the Bible talks about be angry, but sin not. So and to me, that scripture resonates because it's saying, I never told you not to be angry. I never said anger was bad. I said, when you are angry or when you feel anger, clock what comes next, right? Be careful that it doesn't cause you to go overboard or to cause damage or harm, right? The expression of anger does not have to cause harm. It does not have to push you over the edge. It does not have to make you come out of character. Anger is important for the people in your life to know that you are feeling. It is an emotion that they need to know that you are feeling because it is an alarm that says, don't do that, right? It is an alarm that says, boundary here, don't do that. And that is an important thing for me to understand, to communicate. That is vital, which is why my nervous system is now going into overdrive because my communication is not doing the job. My communication is not saying, I'm angry. Do not do that. And I'm angry at you, right? But instead of setting that boundary, I did nothing. I pressed down, and now my nervous system has to come and play cleanup. But the problem is my nervous system, the only way that it functions is in a threat, when I'm alarmed, when I've already maxed out. And this, my friends, was my normal. This was my everyday. This was my waking up, going to work, coming home, doing my duties at home, getting up, going to work, coming. This was a thread through my entire existence, and I had no idea because it was perpetuating that survival mode. And see, the survival mode, it had benefits. Yeah, it had benefits. The anger, the lack of vulnerability, the trust issues, all of those things were feeding that survival mode, giving me proof that I was the only person I could trust, that I was the only person that needed to know how I felt, that I was the only person that could really protect me, right? That I was the person who had to get the job done. Because if it wasn't me, it wasn't right. You see? And so all of these little things in my closet that led to me being mistrustful, not being able to be vulnerable, not comfortable with intimacy, not expressing anger healthily. All of these things, and that's only four things. We got a ways to go here. But all of those things made me a prime candidate to be in survival mode, to put that cape on, become superwoman, the super black woman who can do anything, can fix any problem, who could articulate and is intelligent. This persona that nothing can take me down because I'm strong. This persona was a prime candidate for survival mode because it had benefits. It paid off, which is why I was so confused why these people at work still didn't respect me. I was so confused why my relationship with white women was so distrustful. I was so confused because I am the black woman superhero. I can do it all. Why can't they see that? Good question. To catch part 2, tune in next week. Thank you for walking this stretch of the journey with me. If something in today's episode stirred your spirit, share this episode with a sister. Leave a review or connect with me on social media. Remember, your softness is sacred. Your healing is your birthright. And your queendom, it's already within you. Until next time, keep rising and claim your inheritance. This podcast was brought to you by Artists at Play, nurturing the artist within.